Nakamura's time. I played the Bullet Brawl tournament Saturday, and I was paired with Nakamura. And the last time I played Nakamura, it was actually the game ended in a draw. So I figured we go at it again. And my opening choice, not E4, not D4. We just play something that Nakamura does play a lot. I actually feel like Knight of three and b3, like here it's much more effective because you don't allow like e5, right? You just simply take, and if it's d5, Nakamura does play b3, and this is actually better because you don't allow black to have the central pawns fast enough. You still have to deal with c5, but it's not something to worry about from white's perspective. So I end up playing, effectively b3, and instead of knight f3, and we have d5 by Nakamura. Anytime that your opponent played b3, g3, even c4, you want to play toward the center. You don't want to do like, you want to play toward the center as much as possible. And so obviously here I played bishop b2, disallowing e5 because e5 you simply take, right? That's a free pawn. So he played knight f6 and I played knight f3 and c5. Obviously he knows this very well, fully experienced, number two in the world. What else to say? G3, I'm going for bishop g2. Maybe that's interesting. I just figured that I should play like some kind of a, bishop g2, castles, played safe. This is a bold game. Anything could happen, so knight c6 and bishop g2. So everything is okay so far. Like it's not, there's not much action going on per se. So g6 and then knight e5. The reason I'm laughing here is actually I figured that trading pieces, early on, it may be a good choice, especially with somebody like Nakamura. Nakamura, the troubling for me, it's not just simply the level. The level is like a huge gap, right? It's also the time. He's very fast. He's able to keep up, and he could complicate positions, right? And in order to find ways to win, he's competing for the tournament. He's typically the only guy that normally wins, right? So I figured that trading pieces makes sense, right? So bishop g7, I took very fast on c6. He took back. I castled. So far, everything is okay. Then we have a little bit of interesting play. If you're not really, if you slow down here from white's perspective, I think if you play, let's say d3 or something, you're likely to get hit by h4. And in a bullet game, typically this is going to be difficult, especially with Nakamura. So I figured that, you know what, we're not going to allow any of this. We're just going to play h4. We shut this door in the hope that we still compete, right? And obviously we have queen c7. When I first saw that move, I was like, maybe it's e5. The point of e5 is control the center, right? So let's say you play d3, maybe e5 is interesting, right? Maybe it's manageable from white's perspective, but black is basically claiming that he does have a little bit of center control here, and a little bit concerning move, but I figured that it's okay. We played d3 anyway, which was my choice. He castled, and then we played knight d2. So obviously here, white is just developing pieces. Everything is okay from white's perspective. He played e5. Now, I think the next move is interesting. I believe I played e4, which actually I'm challenging the center here. I'm telling Nakamura that I'm still in the game, even though we're still early stage in the opening. E4 also maybe potential take on d5 in some lines, maybe some rookie one, an attack on e5. So let's say he's not really careful, which is very hard to say against somebody like Nakamura. So let's say he plays here, rook e1, some kind of move like this. This may allow take, right? And if you're not really careful, you think you're fixing your pawn, undouble the pawns, and you're getting hit by bishop takes e5. That's going to be a free pawn, right? So you don't want to do this. Obviously, I just, trying to compete in the center, just like he played e5. So he played bishop e6, developing move. Everything is okay. I suppose this is actually a big mistake by me because now a pawn takes on d5 means exactly what he did is, the pawns are no longer doubled. And I think the best move for me, I figured that this is okay for me, like taking on d5. However, I think the best move here, I believe, is actually some kind of knight f3. Now that move is interesting because now you're really attacking on e5. I think maybe something like this would, white would be have the momentum going forward, like bishop takes e5, like that. You're attacking the queen, by the way, so the queen is under attack on c7. Something like queen b6, and then maybe you could even do this. White is actually good here. Active bishops early on. The double pawns are really kind of not that great now for black. Obviously, this would have been like an interesting choice. I don't understand. I'm still like confused about why knight f3 was not my choice, because this is, when you play knight d2, you're really going to knight f3 next, right? You would assume that this is my thinking process. It's a bold game, so anything could happen, and it's bullet, right? So anything could really happen. You pick up a plan, and it may not work out very well. But so I took here. I don't think this is a good idea. The reason I took, though, I was preparing for c4. So let's say he plays something like a5. Actually, the next move is rook e1. So rook e1 first. I'm preparing still c4. So what the point of rook e1? I'm attacking on e5. So let's say you do something like a5. Again, bishop takes e5. That's a free pawn. He was able to play knight here. I think maybe there was a strong move here. I think he could have probably done. Maybe a knight g4 would have been interesting. Maybe here he doesn't. I don't think Nakamura wanted to complicate the game. He figured that maybe the knight could be kicked on g4, some kind of f3, maybe somehow. I don't think f3 right now makes sense. There's some crazy computer line where he plays c4. I'm not sure how, if we're going to see this on time. And I think, you sack here and, it's actually, there's a bishop takes g4. It's a big mess here. Maybe something to do with c3 coming in, right? So, he didn't do it. He's playing safe approach, and I actually like that. I actually felt like knight d7 is like a very strong move. However, I hear this is where c4. This is the move that I was waiting for. So the point of c4 is actually, and I think this is actually interesting in so many ways. If you take the pawn at c4 or you play d4, the rook on e8 is hanging. And I think the only move, and I'm expecting it during the game, is actually queen d6. So you're probably meeting, something like here with bishop takes d5. And I think this was interesting because I actually felt like maybe I should, maybe I have something going here. Like c5 might be weak pawn, but d3 is also weak pawn. So, and here the computer feels it's like balanced game. Somebody with Nakamura, I believe that he could really, turn this around in his favor. And and it would have been interesting, if he plays queen d6, because I think this is maybe the only move that makes sense on the board at the present time. It was really shocking that the next move came in. It's really interesting. Every time I played Nakamura now, I played him the past two games. The previous game I had a piece. I'm getting some like piece odds against him, and I'm still not winning, And it's okay for like somebody in his level to do this. He played tons of 1 minute chess in this bullet tournament. It is okay to blunder every once in a while, right? It's not like he's gonna play at the top form every single game. It's very hard to play your best, especially when it comes to bullet. There are mouse slip. You get tired. You're playing for 2 hours tournament. You're also streaming it, so there's like a lot of things going on that could lead to this, something like that. So it wasn't too surprising. I was really surprised, but I think, that was my really chance to, to really go after him in a game like this. So when he plays d4, bishop takes, and I don't think there's enough compensation here. If white able to play active, white should be winning, especially in a bold game, because it might be easier to play from white's perspective. You up an exchange, is easy to make the next few moves. He took and then queen f3. So that's a tempo move. The queen is attacking. Let's say if you're not really careful, you're getting hit by that, right? So here, queen f3 is really attacking the rook, and this is Nakamura, of course. He's not somebody would see that, of course. Here, he went back to f8, and I guess knight e4 is interesting. I felt like now I'm confident about my chances to try to win. Knight e4, knight g5 is really good stuff. I'm up in exchange. What else really to ask for in a bold game against somebody who's the second in the world, right? So he played f6. Again, it's difficult. Nakamura is known for his defense skills. And it's not an easy way to, just because you're up in exchange doesn't automatically means you're gonna win. You have to work your way around, your way around to try to figure out what to do. You have an advantage, but you need to continue. So f6, there's also a flag possibilities, right? So that's part of the equation. So I played queen e2, and I think maybe this is a little bit too passive, but I figured that I don't want to get hit by like f5 or anything like this, even though f5 is not that great of a move. So knight here, I understand what he's trying to do. He wants to play knight c6, knight b4. He's keeping, he's trying to defend as much as possible. He's down an exchange, but he's also looking for how he could possibly place his pieces in. This is where it's positional play, like what, some beginners doesn't understand what's a positional play, or, what does it really mean, is to put your pieces in good squares. So maybe he's eyeing knight c6, knight b4, a long-term plan. It's not as easy as it looks, but that's the reason why he retreat back to b8. We always tell people not to retreat to the original square unless you really have a good reason for it. There are exceptions in this game. There are exceptions that you could always do depending on the position in hand, right? So you could do a knight b8 and knight c6. That's actually an idea. However, knight c6 is not like a playable move because c5 is hanging. I mean, knight c6 right now, maybe you could do like knight e6 or defend the pawn at c5 and then play knight c6. But he's working his way to get his knight in a better square. He's not just simply putting a knight in the back rank or, just put it there for no purpose. There's a purpose that's coming in. So I think here I was really confident about a3. I actually felt like a3, b4. You play on two sides now. I was playing on the king side. Now I could play on the queen side. Potential pawn majority here, meaning that I could try to create a pass pawn. I felt like good here, a3, and I'm actually playing for win. Here you just simply play for win. You're not really drawing the game, right? Really, you're up in exchange. I have an active, pieces. Nakamura is not going to give you all these kind of stuff. So a5, and Nakamura is going to defend. So he's actually disallowing b4. Let's say you play king here, for example. b4 is a big move. And supposedly here, and then a takes. You can see the eval bar is going up. White is really active. There's not enough compensation now for black. Things are really coming. a7 is weak, and everything is going to really be in white's direction here. So he disallowed this. Makes perfect sense to me. a5. I still went with b4, and I felt like this is maybe the only way. It feels like it's a little bit of a sack of a pawn. It is a sack of a pawn, and I do really have to be a little bit careful here because this b4 pawn is actually a pass pawn. But I figured that I open up the file. I opened the file for the rook, and maybe I could double up the rooks and able to create some play. And also c4 is a pass pawn now, my c4 pawn. So or I could also like try to win b4, and things will look really good for me. So you could see that I'm going rook e4, attacking b4, and also wanted to get the other rook on e1. So he played knight c6, rook e1, and bishop c8. Now, the point of bishop c8, and this is where grandmasters are pretty strong, he's actually retreating back to... People could really be confused about Nakamura's move. Knight b8, bishop c8, what's happening? So, yes, you could play this kind of stuff, especially in the endgame, right? This is like really an endgame, it's not middle game anymore. We're marching into an endgame, transition to that. The point of bishop c8 is really clever, though. I felt like he wants to play bishop b7 and get this huge diagonal, because now the bishop on g2 that took the rook is actually a bishop. It's a good bishop that you usually hang on to, right? To defend the king, and also like you don't really trade that bishop a lot unless you're winning an exchange. He's trying to prove that bishop b7, and if he's able to take this whole diagonal, he's actually coming back. And that's a good understanding that this diagonal is actually a good thing for black's perspective. That's the reason why he went back on c8. So he went on c8, I played knight d2. Now I actually kind of helping him out in a way, and then I think this is really a big mistake. This is really the big mistake here, the start of the mistakes. You don't really help him out. Like, you play knight d2, he's going to play bishop b7. I think maybe knight c5 would have been an appealing move. I don't know, knight c5 or also queen f3. But I was already on f3 before, so I could just play queen f3 with the idea that I'm looking at some kind of diagonal here. I was concerned about queen f3, and I did look at it during the game. I was concerned because of that. But I actually missed knight c5. And I think this is where knight c5 is pretty strong. Obviously here, you cannot really move the knight. Let's say you play here. He's just helping me out. Rook e7 or rook e8. And this is actually winning for white. Clear winning here, of course. But I missed knight c5. And that's, if I knew that knight c5 is good, I'd probably play queen f3. But I missed that knight c5 was, it could be like a really strong against bishop b7. So I played knight d2. It's really passive, and it's a bad idea to play passive against somebody like Nakamura or even grandmasters in general. And this move is really the start of like issues for white. He went with bishop b7. Good idea. That's the point of bishop c8, is to get the bishop on this diagonal, and I'm just kind of helping him out, as I mentioned. So knight b3. It doesn't make sense. It could have made sense when I was on e4, but it kind of like slowed down a little bit here. Like knight c5 is the goal. So let's say he plays here. It's knight c5. Let's say just giving a random moves. Okay, so this knight takes b7, right? I don't know if knight e6 is really the move here. I don't think knight e6 here, but there's some tricky moves here, I suppose, here, and maybe like the computer feel like this is not as straightforward here. This maybe my king is exposed on g2. It just feels like the computer enjoyed this so much because he get rid of the dangerous bishop, and obviously he could trade here. I think something like here, and this simply like queen e4, and this is actually very difficult from black's perspective. So what happened here? Knight b3. So he played queen e7. I don't know why the computer doesn't like this move a lot. I think it wants queen d6. But I think I feel like queen e7 is good during the game. I felt like he's stopping knight c5. Everything is good. Apparently here it's a draw somehow, and the game is really getting complicated. I played knight e5. I don't know if this is a good move, because actually here he just simply take, and then the bishop on b7 is really, this diagonal is really concerning. I mean, I don't know. You play against Nakamura in a situation like this is not a good idea, but I was trying to trade down as much as possible. I was actually looking at rook b5 to attack on b4 as much as possible, but I don't think this is really realistically a good idea from White's perspective. So I played king h2, he played queen c7, king h2. Again, that feels like a little bit passive because he just plays queen c6 anyway. So queen c6 is a mate on g2, and things are getting really complicated as we go along. 25 seconds, I'm actually down 10 seconds against him, and he's actually up on the clock. So the situation is getting really complicated, as you could tell. I feel like the two bishops are pretty strong here. Black already have compensation. He's not winning. I'm not winning. It's maybe a draw with best play. I don't think best play is coming in, whether it's for me or him, but it's difficult position here, especially when it comes to bullet. F3, this move doesn't make sense. I guess maybe I had like rook g1. Maybe that's the only way. And I think it makes sense in a way. It's just you defend on g1. You don't have to worry about h1, g2 being a problem. But f3 just doesn't make any kind of sense to me. F3, and I think here I'm down at the clock as well. And I think here just simply... I think Nakamura here missed the big move, which is queen takes f3. I felt like queen takes f3 was a really simplistic idea. And I can tell you why Nakamura didn't go for that. There's one good explanation for that. I think he was looking at rook b5 being a problem. And then if I'm able to take on b4, rook e7, some kind of rook e7, getting the two rooks connecting to each other in the back in the 7th rank. But I think he missed bishop e2. And obviously here, if you were to take, for example, it's bishop takes d3. You look at this position, this is actually kind of a nightmares. This position is very strong for black. I mean, I guess maybe he could easily win that one. You're not gonna get this fast enough. You know, you're actually, this is actually being under attack. Should you go for this, for example, this is rook f7. But you know, black took like 500 pawns in the process, and you're not really getting anything. Even though you know white might be up in exchange, but I'm not getting any pawns here. So that's actually the issue. I felt like he could have took on f3. I think he just played f5, which really complicates the game again. That I went was actually rook b5, and that seems to be interesting. That was the original idea, is to play against this b4 pawn. And by the way, if he misplayed here, there's a good chance he could misplay. There's actually rook e7 that comes into play. You're not necessarily going for b4 alone, but rook e7 is actually a plan. So that way, the two rooks now, you can see that the exchange seems to matter in a situation like that. But, you know, obviously it's Nakamura. He's not going to miss that. So he played queen f3 here, which he could have done it a move before, which could have been a more critical for him. Obviously here I took, and then I took here. This is actually, look at this position. This is a draw, even though, you know, I'm still up in exchange. And the c4 pawn seems to be critical for white because it's a pass pawn. So he played e4, and this is actually a good way to play. However, I think I had rook e7. I think this is really the active move here. I felt like this is active move. The computer may not agree so much here. I think maybe the computer wants c5. And I think c5 would have been an interesting idea. Even if pawn takes, there was actually some ideas like this. You're not really doing d2 because I could simply take. And something like here, and then this rook d4. This is actually still draw, which is funny. You know, he's still gonna queen here, and obviously this is gonna be like 3 versus 3, and it's actually nobody's doing anything at all. This is actually a draw, easy draw. So I played rook e7, and I can tell you why I played rook e7. It's easy to go wrong. Again, that's to give a random move. Let's say g5, which doesn't make sense at all, but let's say I could play here maybe. Even this is a draw. The idea is actually I'm trying to get the two rooks in the 7th rank and try to create some trouble. He does have bishop e5, which is very interesting. And the computer wants you to play back again. Maybe this is actually a draw. Maybe rook e8 and then rook b6. White still finds a way to keep checking as far as I could tell you. This is actually looks like a draw, even though the pawns are really moving fast. So let's say this may be close to winning. You would assume that black is close to winning. There's some crazy ideas. I think no crazy ideas. I think there's one line that's bishop e3, but there's actually the most obvious one is check. And here that's actually, you know, white does keep checking. So it's a draw here, but it would have been a try, right? Both sides. So I think c5 would have been interesting if white wants to play for a win, right? So I played rook e7, and he took the pawn, and now this is where c5 maybe is the only way to play on. I played the worst move here, bishop c1. This move doesn't make sense. I think the only reason I played this move is to stop d2, really. I mean, if you play a random move like this, is actually d2. You know, it's just the pawn already promoted here, right? You don't have time for rook b7 because he could take me. That's actually the issue, and we have a queen. We have a queen. So that's the reason why I played here. It's to stop d2 from ever happening, so I could take, you know, bishop takes d2. But Nakamura had rook e8, and here it's actually black is winning. The reason black is winning is very simple. The two pawns are really strong. The bishops now is annoying as hell. I think there's rook e1 possibilities. Like, let's say if I play randomly here, there's rook e2. This is actually like stunning that how black was able to get to this position. So obviously, he was able to find ways. It's just because of bishop c1. If it wasn't bishop c1, let's say c5, rook e8, this is not as big of a deal because I could actually take here. And by the way, you don't have d2 because I could take on g7 with check. This one is a big issue. Now this is where I could win, right? Something like here, and I think rook g7, and you do have rook g5, and then I think here the computer is giving me that this is a win. Rook g7, king e8. So yeah, that's a win. So it has to be careful. Well, I have to be careful with bishop c1 anyway. I was not really careful with g4. Now things are really. I don't understand this move. This is like doesn't make sense at all. I think here I'm lost regardless what I do. And g4 was like really weird attempt. I guess g4. The point of g4 is to get to king g3. Like. I don't necessarily get mated. I was kind of concerned, like, after here, rook e1 or something, and, but this is not an issue per se for, but I'm just giving up a free pawn for nothing. So he checks on e5, which is perfect move, and then I play king g1. This is completely lost. It's difficult, nothing, 12 seconds against 25 seconds. Bishop here... Mating within distance. Obviously, if you play any moves, let's say you play here, he's just getting mated rook e1. So he's coming in. This is Nakamura. Everything is, winning. Everything is just simply winning for black. However, I played bishop d2, just stopping rook e1 checkmate for one move. And I think the only move that makes sense here is rook e2. And I don't think there's any issues. I think you're stopping. This is not made because you could take, right? The rook cannot go here, because he could take that. The two bishops are really like the diagonals here are like amazingly good. They act like a defense and they acting like as an attacker. So the two bishops really at stopping the rook's activity on the other side of the board, and they also applying the checkmate on e1 or supporting the checkmate ideas. So he could have played here, and I was shocked by this because I saw rook e2 and I was about to resign, to be honest. Nothing to do here, 11 seconds, it's just like nothing much going on. But I saw this, Nakamura played this, and I cannot believe this move when it happens because I think here the game is really shifted. Because here white could draw this. By the way, the bishop on d2 is stopping e1, right? So this one move that he missed, Nakamura did miss, is actually the next move, is rook b6. Now, this is actually draw, if you believe it or not. The reason it's a draw, and I think Nakamura tried to stop, here, but the problem is, the reason it's a draw, let's say you play king h8, for example, right? I just take on g6, and the problem is checks on h6, g6. He cannot find a way to stop the checks. And if he continue, he could get checkmated. And he tried, just to show you what I mean, he played rook b8. Obviously, this would be bad idea. This is still good for black. Even though I could have went for this on rook e6, the computer still believes this is some kind of a draw again, but I felt like this is not the right way. I just want to force a draw as much as possible, and the draw is here. So this is actually the reason why it's troubling for black, because the king is exposed, and obviously he cannot escape the checks. Nakamura had to go back here, and I just check him back, check him back, check him back. If you go for this one, that's the issue. You're getting hit by that one here and checkmate. And that will be achievement. I don't think he missed that. He knew about it ahead of time. And that's the reason why pawn takes. And I think also like around here, it's just... maybe this is winnable. The reason if after rook b6, bishop e4. And I think here, the bishop e4, the big difference between the moves, when you play rook b6, just to show you guys what I mean by that. If he takes this way, rook b6, bishop e4. Bishop e4 defends g6, so you cannot do this. Bishop takes g6. So when you do it the other way around, you don't have bishop e4. So rook b6, you cannot defend g6. That's actually the issue. He may do a king move, but that doesn't solve the problem. Here is actually mate, potential mate. rook g6, and that's the mate that I'm talking about. Bishop g7, and something like here, bishop d4. Mate is coming in. Actually, yeah, mate in 8. And if you move the king the other way, which you could have tried this, but it's the same thing. Rook takes g6 and rook check on h6. There's no way you could stop it. Computer is giving rook b8, which bishop b8 even. It's still the same check. It's the same draw. All I have to do is just basically move back and forth and keep checking. It's a draw. I mean, to be honest, both sides played some mistakes, but the game really, like, if you look over the game in the beginning, I was able to keep up my own stuff, and, like, I took the rook on e8, I up an exchange. If you think about it, White was doing well, right? But the game was really balanced in the opening. He could have played, like, queen d6 instead of d4, and the game would have been, like, equal as far as I'm concerned. It's a fair result, I guess, assuming that, we both made some blunders. But hey, that's a Nakamura, and I was still able to compete against him head-to-head, and the game ended in a draw. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and stay tuned for more games. Thank you.